It's a long time ago that little David allegedly brought down giant Goliath with no more than a sling and a stone. Modern heroes like John Donovan from the UK use modern tools, of course, when they fight big enemies. Donovan owns a website that publishes information on multinational oil giant Shell with the help of moles inside the company, and that has made him a real thorn in the side of the group.
Right next to the London Eye is Shell corporate headquarters, and it's the target of a grassroots protest movement.
Thank you very much.
John Donovan hands out flyers to passers-by detailing the oil giant's drilling projects. Donovan and fellow campaigners say the multinational corporation is responsible for wreaking havoc in the places where it drills. Their actions have become a source of annoyance for one of the world's biggest oil companies.
It embarrasses Shell senior management, things that we are able to publish in those leaflets. It's a humiliation for Shell, but they cannot do anything about it because what we say is true and we can prove it.
Distributing leaflets outside the company headquarters is mostly a symbolic gesture. The real battle rages online. Donovan secured rights to the internet domain royaldutchshellplc.com many years ago. What sounds like the company's official homepage is actually a site dedicated to exposing its dark side. Millions have read the online articles about scandalous Shell practices. In Nigeria, for example, oil leaks have contaminated the Niger River Delta. Donovan also says Shell has cooperated with rebels there. He says he simply wants the company to live up to its own commitments.
We want Shell to honour its own business principles. These were launched in 1976 and people are entitled to believe the promises that are made in there that Shell will at all times act with honesty and integrity and openness when they deal with people, with their own employees, with their suppliers and with the general public. But in our experience, they do not. They are a ruthless, mean oil company.
Donovan's revelations have cost Shell billions. In 2005, he wrote an email to Russian President Vladimir Putin disclosing lax security standards at the Sakhalin-2 drilling project in Siberia. He warned of a looming environmental disaster. As a result, Shell fell out of favour in Moscow, with financial repercussions. Profits sank, and Russia downgraded Shell to a minority partner in the joint venture.
Mr. Donovan was of help to us with his documents. His files proved beyond a doubt that paperwork had been manipulated and problems had been purposely kept secret.
Not surprisingly, John Donovan doesn't fill his tank at Shell stations. But he actually used to do business with Shell. He owned several gas stations and came up with advertising ideas for the energy giant. But Donovan says the partnership ended after a bitter disappointment.
One of their managers had stolen ideas from us and expected that we wouldn't pursue it, that we would drop it because Shell is so rich and powerful. And we decided that we wouldn't drop it and we pursued them through the courts. And it's gone on for 2 decades ever since.
Donovan's first-hand experience with Shell's treatment of ordinary people prompted him to dig for further evidence of improper behaviour. At his house in Colchester, he's been piling up his own research and information that's been passed on to him by insiders. It's a full-time job for the pensioner. He even stores some of the files in an old refrigerator.
We found out what Shell really thinks about us because it's in these Shell internal communications. And we found out that they set up a countermeasures team. They instituted a global spying operation against us. They sought advice from a specialist unit in Pittsburgh, which is staffed and partly funded by the FBI.
Donovan himself prefers transparency. He informs Shell of his protest plans and his website is accessible to everyone. A former Shell employee of 37 years says Donovan's campaign is bothersome, and rightfully so.
When you have that amount of power, you need to be held accountable. And my view is that democratic systems don't always hold multinationals like Shell to account as much as they should. So there's a gap, and into that gap, people like John Donovan will come.
One man's fight against one of the world's biggest companies, and John Donovan is determined to keep the towering giant fully in his sights.